International travel can be so exciting, but it can be so stressful if you're not well prepared. Today, we're going to cover a few areas that will hopefully make your next international experience a lot less stressful. Hi, I'm Jeannie, and my channel will hopefully help take some of the stress out of international travel. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, information, and travel updates to exciting international travel destinations. This information was gained from over 25 years of travel to over 40 countries and 6 continents. I always say international travel doesn't have to be stressful. Advanced preparation will help us travel with a lot more ease and a lot less stress. Before we get started, I'd like to shout out the Portable Professional. I watched her video on international travel updates for 2023, and there was a lot of good information in there, but there's some things that I thought I'd like to share on my channel. Okay, let's start with research. I find a lot of people don't seem to do a lot of research, but you don't have to go a deep dive, but you can just do a quick Google search to research the area that you're traveling to. Are you traveling to a Muslim country? Are you traveling to a country that currently has geopolitical upheaval? What about the time of the year that you're traveling? Have you done a search to see if you're traveling in typhoon season? Make sure you do just a little bit of research at least before you travel to some of these destinations. It'll save you a lot of stress. Passports and visas. In general, there's a 6-month passport rule. And it depends on which country you're traveling to. There's some nuances to this because there are some countries that only require that you have 3 months remaining on your passport after you return from your travel. But in general, your passport must be valid for another 6 months beyond the date of your departure. And what that does is, for a country, it gives them a little bit more certainty that you're not going to defect and try to stay in the country. So check your passport expiration date, go online and find out what the passport valid expiration date requirements are for the country that you're visiting, because some of them are different. There's 6-month validity countries, and then there's some countries that only require 3 months. Visas. Let's talk about visas. Some countries, depending on where you're traveling, require that you have a visa, a travel or tourist visa. And depending on the country, they will either have what's called an e-visa, where you can apply online and obtain and pay for the visa online prior to your arrival in the destination country. Or, depending on where you're going, depending on what country you're coming from, what country you're a citizen of or a passport holder of, you may be able to get what's called a visa on arrival. Several countries, lots of countries offer U.S. citizen passport holders what's called a visa on arrival. And that means that once you reach the customs for that foreign country, when you go through the customs process, and they see your passport is from the United States, or if you're one of the eligible countries, you'll be able to just get a visa at that point. And it's really nothing that you'll have to physically hold on to. They'll just stamp your passport, ask you a couple of questions, and send you on through. The third, and I think it's not as used as much nowadays, is the consulate-issued visa, where if you have a consulate for a particular country in the city that you live in, then you go to that consulate and you apply for a visa to enter the country that that consulate represents. Like I mentioned before, I don't believe that's done as much anymore because everything's kind of gone electronic, online. But just to make sure that you have a stress-free trip, make sure you understand what the visa requirements are for the country you're traveling to. Okay, let's talk about health and vaccinations. Check the requirements of the country that you're visiting to make sure that you are not required to have any shots that you need to take in advance. Also, if you're on any prescribed meds, determine whether or not that destination country requires you to have documentation from your physician about the medication that you'll be bringing into that country. I was headed to Australia, and I had a blood pressure med, and I had to get a screenshot from my healthcare portal to show that this particular medication was actually prescribed by my doctor. I was never asked to produce that document to show anyone, but just in case I had it. So again, if you want to have a less stressful vacation, make sure you are prepared with documentation of any meds that you might be on. Also, travel insurance, there's such thing as annual travel insurance. I'm just learning about this. I just purchased my first annual travel insurance policy this year. And my suggestion would be that if you're going to take more than 2 trips a year, even 2 trips, international trips a year, I would suggest that you look into an international travel insurance policy. For me, the price was less expensive, and I felt confident that I was covered for the entire year, because who knows, sometimes trips pop up and I just have to go on them. So I like to be covered. Let's talk about currency. Do you know what the foreign currency is for the country that you're traveling to? If not, back to Google. Go to Google, find out what foreign currency is, what the exchange rate is, and find out what credit cards are used in that country. A lot of times we're not aware that American Express is not accepted in most foreign countries, nor is Discover Card. It's usually Visa. So make sure you know what credit cards are accepted, or even if credit cards are not as useful as they are in other places. For example, in Vietnam, a lot of the places that I shopped were small mom and pop operations, and a lot of them didn't take credit cards at all. I had to have Vietnamese dongs. So luckily for me, I bring along a debit card. The debit card does not charge foreign transaction fees, nor does it, it does, I may incur a debit card withdrawal fee, but that fee is reimbursed to me at the end of the month by the credit card or the debit card issuer. So I was able to be very flexible and take the stress out of the entire experience by being able to just pop into an ATM machine, withdraw the money I needed, and purchase the items. So make sure you're fully aware of what currency is needed or used, whether or not credit cards are used as fluidly as they are in the United States. Also, it's beneficial to download a foreign currency app so that you can readily determine what something costs in your home country, dollars, versus the foreign currency. Transportation. We want to take the stress out of travel as much as we can. So I suggest you look into hiring a private driver. It sounds like an extravagant expense, but that's not always the case. Depending on where you're going, you can find drivers to take you around the entire day, or just hire them for a couple days, or for the entire week. So look into hiring a private driver. There are tons of websites online that will introduce you to private drivers. And then there's lots of suggestions about people that have used particular drivers in certain countries. So just think about that. Next, we're going to talk about communications. Does your cell phone have equipped with an international calling plan? If that's how you want to communicate, then make sure you call in advance to your provider to make sure you're already set up for that. Will you need a Wi-Fi? A hotspot? Sometimes Wi-Fi isn't always as readily available as we'd like. I don't like to be without access to the internet wherever I go, so I always make sure I have a hotspot available. Will you need a SIM card? Some people prefer to use SIM cards. I've never really used SIM cards. I just use WhatsApp, which is another option to make free long distance calls and text messages. So I make sure that app is downloaded on my phone, and I just make my phone calls via WhatsApp. A VPN. I've just become a fan of the VPN. I was in Cabo, Mexico, and I tried to watch, sitting in the condo, trying to watch Netflix, getting ready to settle into this nice movie, and I got a message that said Netflix wasn't offered there. So I popped out my VPN, changed it to Phoenix, and was able to watch my film. So I've been a fan of VPNs ever since. Packing and the baggage policy of some of these airlines. Let's talk about that. Make sure you check that baggage policy. Some of these airlines have gotten quite restrictive with their requirements for even carry-ons. They have a weight restriction on how much your carry-on can weigh. So make sure that you have fully understood what the weight limit is for your check bag, if you're checking a bag, as well as for your carry-on. You don't want to get into a situation where you have to start opening up luggage and transferring things inside of neck pillows and putting stuff on your body, wearing a couple of shirts and that kind of thing to redistribute the weight. So if you prepare that in advance, it will make your trip a lot less stressful. And last but not least, safety. Have you checked into whether or not what the scams and the latest thefts and pickpockets and crimes are in the area that you're traveling? Just because you're on vacation, you shouldn't let your brain go on vacation. You don't have to be paranoid and looking over your shoulder every 5 minutes, but just make sure you're aware of what some of the common pickpockets and scams are out there in the country that you're visiting. You just want to be safe. Also, another tip I have for safety is check in with the U.S. State Department if you're traveling if you're a United States citizen. Register with the U.S. State Department. We live in some pretty volatile times now around the world. There's political upheaval. There's terrorist acts that can occur. Anything can happen where you may end up having to evacuate a country on the spur of the moment. So if you register in advance with the U.S. State Department, they will know where you are or that you are in that country at the time of the upheaval, and they will be able to readily assist you to evacuate. Without registering, you are pretty much on your own as to how to get out of that country quickly. So take a look at that, think about it, and I would definitely recommend that you register with them. So today I hope I was able to shed some information to you on how to keep yourself safe and make your next travel destination or make your next travel experience a lot less stressful because you are prepared in advance. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you really like this content. And also hit the notification button so that you'll be notified for any upcoming videos that I'll be doing. Hit me up in the comments section for any future videos you'd like to see. Bye for now.